we are in an age of superabundance.
Yeah.
And we have been for 30, 40 years, and time prices demonstrate it. And it's there's been you were saying that commodity prices are flat since 1980, measured by time prices. Commodity prices are down 75%.
Absolutely. But one of the reasons I've featured that particular chart and put it on Twitter is, to question the people out there who are saying we're in this 70s style inflation.
Yeah.
Actually, so in real terms, you're right. Those prices have collapsed. In nominal terms, they're flat.
Yeah.
That is not the perception. People think we're in this massive inflation.
Yeah. We have another technology that's just as massive in its impact as any of the ones you cite.
Let me guess.
And this conference has been been celebrating it with all sorts of cogent speeches, and that's graphene.
Can I?
A two-dimensional.
Yeah, and because
and it confirms all your five. It strengthens all your five different converging technologies, and in fact, will make them possible.
So we, Universal Matter, we're looking at it. We've just actually started a venture fund. So we are very interested in these very early stage material science. So just to throw maybe just a little bit of investment experience into the discussion.
Yeah.
Right now it reminds me a bit of nanotechnology in the day. And I remember we were chasing it down, and what happened to it? What happened was the big industrial conglomerates bought up all of those companies, those small companies, and they were the biggest beneficiaries. The other thing, we have studied material science. It's hard to scale. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And then the third thing is, our biggest mistake, I think, in the last 10 years, so we'll be 10 years old in January, in terms of assumptions for a technology, is 3D printing. When you're dealing with the aerospace industry, automobile industry, the regulatory environment is so exacting and frustrating. One of the biggest sources of hope for all technologies that face regulatory impediments that really shouldn't be there, some should not, is regulatory arbitrage, meaning China or some other country competing. Israel, and innovation solves problems, so hopefully, that will kick in over there as well. But this regulatory arbitrage is becoming very important. I think we've been put to shame in this country on the whole blockchain technology, especially Bitcoin world. I think that's very political. So we've got to get politics out of this.
Well, I've been rethinking Bitcoin a bit in view of the radical deflationary forces that are manifested by time prices. Bitcoin's deflationary properties, its cap, may not be so crippling as I've imagined, and it gives it an additional impetus that real prices are actually dropping as fast as the Bitcoin cap reduces the supply. So the rate of growth of the supply. So Bitcoin has a shot still, but I think there's going to be Bitcoin will change, or there will be some evolution that can make it the real money, that all the fiat currencies will be ultimately valued by their time prices registered in Bitcoin as it evolves.
So when Art looked at the paper in 2015, now, so this was in 2015 when Bitcoin was $250. It's at $35,000 now. The first response he had was, I've been waiting for this. I've been waiting for this since we went off.
Whose response?
This is Art Laffer saying,
Art Laffer.
Yeah, I have been waiting for this since we went off the gold exchange standard in 1971. I have been waiting for this, a rules-based monetary system. Now, I don't think it's the right rule, he said, meaning it's a quantity rule of money.
Yeah.
But they'll get it right. Now we've done 2 more podcasts with him, and as I mentioned, he's 83 years old.
So am I, by the way.
All right, God bless you. God bless you. I have never, and innovation keeps us all young, right? So he's like a kid. I have never seen him more excited because he said, we have a chance of getting the Fed out of the equation here. We have a chance, yes, of going back to private money. And he also said, and our podcast, let's see, I think it's I don't know, it's a number of our podcasts, but Art Laffer, Bitcoin, and you'll find, he said that there is a way, and this is in answer to one of the questions up on your panel, there is a way that with the institutionalization of Bitcoin, that and bringing a lot of decentralized players into this, that it will evolve into a price rule by its very nature if it becomes big enough. I remember saying to him, this is when it was $250, so it was a $6 billion market cap. Today it's $500 billion. I said to him when he said, Art, this sounds like a big idea. And he said, it is. And I said, well, how big is it? And he said, well, how big is the US monetary base? And back then, it was $4.5 trillion. Today, it's $8 trillion. It's a very big idea.
Yeah. Well, that's, so Art, do you regard yourself as a supply-side investor?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Supply creates its own demand. The new creation, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'll also tell the story of the first time I met you. The first time I met you was in 1980, and no, you wouldn't have. I was 20, early 20s, just moved to New York, and none of the portfolio managers could attend this dinner, and you were there, and we wanted representation there. So they gave me my first shot. And the first dinner I ever went to, professional dinner, was you, and I was blown away. And I was the only
one.
Yeah,
when was this?
I was blown away because I got into the business for reasons that you were talking about very freely that night. I got into the business. I first started at Capital Group on the West Coast because I thought, wow, all of these people are being paid to learn, and not just and to learn about how the world's going to work. And so you were talking about the future and taking people to a place in time where they weren't used to living. And I loved it. I loved it.
Okay, well, and how did I miss you? But anyway, well, that's terrific. What are your how do you plan to change your investment company? How is it?
Yeah.
How will it respond to all these convergences? Your own entity.
Yeah. How are we going to try and avoid being disrupted? Because the traditional financial world is going to be disrupted. Well, we think, and if you're talking specifically about the financial world, we know that we have to insinuate ourselves into the digital wallet world. We think individuals are going to run their financial lives through digital wallets. WeChat Pay was, the earliest version of that. I just listened to Block's earnings call today. That's what they're going to do. So we need to find our way into all of these digital wallets. In terms of ARC generally, we're starting crypto funds. We just started a venture fund, but we are trying to be true to our brand and our roots, focus exclusively on disruptive innovation. That's true. Very transparent. That's not true of the traditional venture world. Very transparent and crypto world. And we're focused on democratization. So we not only give our research away, so we have a social media, social marketing, and now we have a social distribution strategy. So our venture fund can reach people through an app, the Titan app, and they can get involved with our fund for only $500. So young people, and that's the biggest question that we get. Yes, and so we're thrilled with the holdings in the fund right now. I think that our willingness to give away our research, which has become part of the decks in a number of venture capital companies, has given us a place at the table more than I thought it would, and I'm very grateful for that.
You deserve it.
Thank you.
One wild card question. Charlie Munger said yesterday that BYD in China was outperforming Tesla in manufacturing and was making greater gains, and that he really was ready to bet on BYD against Tesla.
Well, they've had BYD in their portfolio for a long time. And there is going to be a Chinese champion. The government will have, Tesla is not going to be the Chinese EV champion. Tesla can be the big exporter of a very high-end product, which they want. They don't want to just be, low-end commodities exporter, right? So they're quite pleased so far. And BYD has done a great job. BYD's success is part of the reason, the reason they've been so successful is the same reason Tesla has been successful. They both decided to leverage the consumer electronics learning curve, right? Whereas most other automakers did not believe you could use cell phone or laptop batteries and line the bottom of a car. They thought that was a recipe for fires and disaster. And of course, those are the two companies. Well, no, they're starting to change their spot. They have to change their spots because their learning curve may be steeper, but their costs are starting from a much higher place. So I think BYD and Tesla are the two to beat. I don't think I think those two are the share gainers, the major share gainers during the next 5 to 10 years.